Cool. Yep, I can see myself. Refresh my YouTube, see if that's going. Let's see, the only thing I don't have is my YouTube page, but that doesn't really matter. Yeah, it says it's offline. Yeah. Oh, the title's there. Dashboard. Go back. Oh, it's a new URL too each time. Cause well, I may have just shown my stream key. Yeah, well, let me hold on. No. Okay. Oh yeah, duh. Um, hmm. Yeah. So that's the link that should be associated with the same key that I gave you earlier. But yeah, it still says offline, which is weird because the type. I think no, that's the old title. Maybe it's just really, really delayed. Oh wait a minute. There's another. There's another one going. Okay, there we go. And it says Untitled Broadcast Multi-Stream. Got it. Cool. All right. I guess we're live. That's good. Good to know. What's up, Pink Omelette? Blair, what's up, Blair? I'm seeing you guys come in now. Sorry for the delay. We're having to track down where things were coming in. All right. If you guys are watching and you can see and hear everything all right, say something in chat. Give me a what's up. And we'll get going in about 2 to 5 minutes. Let some people show up. Cool. Thanks, Blair. Delay is not too bad. Audio's in both channels this time. All right, I did it. I fixed it. All right, thank you, Blair. That's good to hear. So Pink omelet. Ah, I got it. Pink omelet. Okay, that's from Periscope, so that's pretty cool. I don't remember anyone being on Periscope last time, like actually in the chat. Time to pimp the Pro Video podcast. Yeah, dude, you should totally pimp that right now. Plus, I think didn't just a new episode come out like yesterday or the day before? I just got it. Yeah, September 28th. So yesterday at some point. So that's Australian time. So he's in the future. So probably came out in the middle of the night for me. What's up, Paul? A-OK, thank you. Why is SD still here? SD, like standard definition? Oh, that's the name of the episode? Hold on. Got it. Yep, see it. Cool. I thought you meant I was streaming in SD. I am not streaming in ultra wide because people kind of have been complaining enough about it. So my goal is to do 1080 tonight, and hopefully by the end of next week, I will have a 4K monitor, and then that way I can have all my screen real estate and keep the 16:9 ratio for you guys. What's up, Rock of Force, Nick? Yeah, I updated that today, so I can show that a little bit. Yeah, I've got undersampling right here, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And I'll talk about that too. Um, it's pretty awesome. I don't know if my scene's complex enough to really make a big difference, but it may be noticeable. All right, so what are we at? 9:03, 8:03. Give it 2 more minutes. It's weird. The chat for me says that Periscope's connected and YouTube is connected, but I'm not getting Twitch coming through at the moment. It says it's still trying to connect to the Twitch chat. Maybe I should have that up. And that you're, yeah, let me see. Brograph. Bring that up. Yeah, go to the channel. You can do it, computer. Okay. Yeah, sometimes they have specific settings for that. All right. Well, let me update right now. Oh, come on, tablet. What are you doing? Alright, OBS doesn't want me to change anything at the moment, so yeah. Alright, I guess I'm going to get started in just a minute here. It's 9:05. What is going on? Oh, you were just on screen for a split second. I was dragging my Skype around. Oh, well. Yeah. Make sure. Alright, so Cinema's working. Chrome is being a little weird at the moment. Okay, good. Then that's fine. Alright, switching to Cinema. There we go. And it says 3 of the 5 channels are connected. Let's see which ones. So the only ones I don't have for chat are Twitch at the moment. So, no, I guess if anyone's on Twitch and trying to chat, send me a message through YouTube, because it seems like that's the only one where chat's coming through for me. But no, we'll get started. All right, everybody, I'm Liam Clisham. If you've been following along week to week so far, we're going to do a live stream covering Redshift. This week, my focus is going to be on lights. Since there was an update in the last 24 hours, I'm going to talk about the undersampling a little bit too, and then also just take some questions to make this not so technical and boring and just, dry. I'm going to go through these lights really fast. Whoa, Lester Banks, what's up, dude? And just keep it simple. I want this to be more of a Q&A session than a tutorial. If you want to learn more about lights, we put out a tutorial on Tuesday. You can go back on the YouTube channel and watch that to really get a good overview of each light. I've got the same tutorial open here in Cinema, and I'm going to go through them, but like I said, it's going to be a little bit more rapid fire, and then if you guys have questions, I'll stop and slow down and break down things for you, so, keep the pace going. So first, here's a look at my shiny balls right here, and to go over this a little bit, if it looks grainy, it's because I'm running as a progressive render right now, and to clean it up, you can click this button and get your buckets going, and that's just for speed, so I'm going to turn that off just to keep it going. And to talk about the lights, I've got each one divided up here in my objects, and then I've got an environment tag to show how lights work with environments too. So this first light right here is just an area light, and in the general tab you'll pretty much notice the same thing in each light. So if it's an area light, if it's a point light, spotlight, all the same things are there. They just kind of get grayed out or taken out and specialize a little bit more. So for the area light, I kept it here because I just like the effect that it gives. So you can see how diffuse reacts better, you can see how specular reacts better, and I can show you that in a little bit more detail than if I chose any other light to start with. So in the general area, you're going to have this little tab here called Preview. And what you get in there is a wireframe checkbox, an illumination checkbox, and then adjustment. If I go into the quad setup here, what that really does is just in your viewports controls your wireframe right here and illumination. So if you have that on, you can see this light just turned on over here. If you adjust this slider, that controls how much light is seen in your viewport. I personally don't like it, so I'm just going to turn off the illumination one, and I keep my wireframe up just so I know where my lights are in the scene. Then, hey, Hugo, awesome. What's up, man? Hugo is, I think, in Australia or New Zealand. Sorry, I know you guys don't like to be confused, but I know you're on that side of the world. So under general, we have two modes. We've got our color. So if you want to have red, slide it, you get red, blue, all that jazz. But I like to keep it on temperature, and the way that's calculated is through Kelvin. So 6500 is basically a white light. If you go up higher, you get blue down here. And for giggles, I'm going to slide this over even more. It's kind of weird working at this 1080 ratio. Give you guys a better view here. Oh, I'm in top down at the moment. There we go. Lock my camera view. So if we slide it down, you get warmer, and you can manually enter in numbers too if you want. You can even do like 5 degrees Kelvin. It's not really going to matter. But 6500 is where it will start for default, and you get your white light and can adjust from there. Under texture, you can throw in gobos and things like that. If you know anything about photography, a gobo is kind of like a mask for your camera soft or your light softbox. And so you can get like stars and textures and refine your light even more. I'm not going to go into that now just because I don't want to hunt down a gobo image. And then under unit type, that keeps it on image up here that we were talking about. It's also the easiest way to multiply your light intensity. So 1, 2, 4, and in Redshift you always want to multiply by 2 or doubling it, so you want to go up to 8 next. It's like anything in a computer, so if you have RAM in a computer you might have 8 gigs, next step up would be 16 gigs, next step would be 32, so you always double what you're working with. We don't need all that, so we'll just go back down to say 2. Under here is a bunch of other options involving math. I don't really like math, so you guys can look up all the details yourself, but luminance or luminous power is based on luminance, lumens. Luminance is based on candela and the fall off that has. Radiant is watts, so like, a 500 watt light bulb. And then that's radiant power, and then radiance is watts divided by ceridian and fall off. So all stuff you guys can look up in your own time so I don't get too technical and boring. Down here is decay. If you've been working in 3D for a while, you probably recognize inverse square. That's math too. Basically how light falls off and exponentially falls off if you move, say, 1 foot away, 2 feet away, 3 feet away from something. That's how that's calculated. You can do none. You'll see down here everything gets blown out. And then linear, where you can control it yourself. So start the fall off there, really gets under control, and then you can bring it back and really just dial it in. For my sakes, I usually like inverse square. And then down here's a bunch of area options, which we can go over later. And then ray tabs. So this is where having a bias renderer starts to be pretty cool. So if you want to have a light just only affect your specular, we can just uncheck diffuse, and you can see that it stops doing that. I have my sun on. There we go. And so if I uncheck specular, then it goes completely dark. Can just have diffuse on, no specular, bring that back on, and then a matte shadow illuminator. So that's like having a shadow catcher. You can also use these sliders to control it and dial it in more precisely. Then if you go into volume, I've talked about this in the God Rays tutorial, but really quickly, this is usually set to 0. If you just give it just a little bit, we'll do 0.25, and you bring in an environment's going to give you some fog, and turn that on, and you'll see we start to get that. 0.25 is going to be way too much. We'll do 0.05, and that's how you start to give some ambient fog lighting to your scene, and you can control it here or in your Redshift environment. Go watch the God Rays tutorial if you haven't already to really see how it all comes together using a spotlight, an environment, and even faking like a gobo through some cloners. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And the next tab is shadows, so you can control how transparent it is, or if you even want shadows. So right there, turn your shadows off. Here, crank it up to adjust the transparency. One is going to be completely opaque, or completely translucent, transparent, and no shadow whatsoever. Here's photons and caustics and GI. I already have GI turned on in here, but you can dial it in more here. Caustics, if I was working with glass or say a diamond, it would be the light that comes through and how it refracts through glass and all of that. So last one is project. So if you wanted to control how things are projecting onto objects and exclude them or include them, and say if I didn't want it to affect these shiny balls here at all, then I would put it in here. If I didn't want it to affect the plane that I've got set up, you can put it in there. And the inverse is true too. So that's pretty much universal through each light. Then going into each individual light is where you can start to get nitpicky options. So an infinite light is like if you've ever worked with an infinite light in physical or standard. Same deal. It's kind of like a faux sun. So you get some, dialing in details that you don't with just using the physical sun. And if you watch me rotate it here, you can see the light reacting there. And same deal, color. Decay doesn't happen here because it's an infinite light. There's no actual decay. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is what I just covered. Point light is going to be like a general light bulb. So right here, if we went into our quad view, you'll see this is the light bulb circle there. So as we adjust the intensity, you can see it's shown right there in the wireframe. And crank that all the way back up, and you can slide it over and you can start to see how it's just like a light bulb that you would have in your house. and watch the video. I go into a little bit more detail about how the intensity multiplier works in here and how decay works with a point light versus the other lights. It's a little bit more specific. Spotlight, love spotlight. So control it here for cone. Fall off here. You can see it starts to get feathered a little bit. Harry Potter, this stream is about your Patronus coming out. But really, it's just about lights in Redshift and each one and breaking it down. And then we go into a Q&A. You can ask me whatever you want. So, if you have a question about using a Redshift environment and how fog works or things like that, we'll just start to deviate away into random stuff. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the update that happened today in IPR undersampling. So we'll go over that in just a minute once I get through all the lights. So, Spotlight, nice and easy if you've ever used Spotlight before. If you've used Brograph Spotlight for Octane, same idea. You can control the little details here, and you can get really nice cinematic effects. What's up, Carl? Thanks for joining. Under here, all the different area lights. So area lights in Octane are awesome and Redshift are awesome because they're just so malleable. You can do a lot with them. So this one here is the same as the breakdown light up here, except I've got a few less samples and the intensity is changed a little bit. But if you look at it, one of the best things that people point out is you've got these handles up in the corners here, and that just shows you the direction that the light's going to go in. So if you ever are trying to figure out which way your light is pointing, that's how you can figure it out. And also kind of shows you how the light's going to fall off. So if I crank that up, you can start to see the light falls off in that direction. I went way too high. Let's say 6. So these handles right there, you can see it's mimicking the fall off right there. You can also change your shape in here, get really nice stuff going on. If you want it to be a bi-directional light, which means it's shining in both directions, you can get that going on. You can see the split in the seam right there. And pull this back. Turn off bi-direction. There we go. And so all the other area lights are very similar, except they just are specialized in shape. So this is a disc light. You can see it gets more rounded in here. If you want an actual circle, you can dial that into 500, 500. If you want it more elliptical, say 1500 in one direction, you can see it kind of turns into this cone head type reflection there. As we go into this here, the cylinder, I really like that. It kind of gives you this like fluorescent light bulb industrial feel. So if you want to have a series of industrial lights, you can do that easily with a bunch of cylinders. And moving down through, we've got the area mesh here. And so you can throw an area light onto a mesh. If you just look up here, I've got an octopus, and I'll change my camera angle to right there and unlock. So you can have a mesh object, and if you want it to be visible, you can have it lit up in your scene, or you can turn it off so it's kind of like a ghost object in the reflection. Again, bi-directional. Doesn't really make sense because by nature it automatically goes in all directions. I think that's more along the lines if you don't have a solid object, so like a plane, then you would turn that on so it would be coming off both sides of the normals, so the actual normal side and the reverse side. So we'll turn that back on. So that's pretty much a mesh light. You can do that just by throwing any kind of mesh right in there. And turn that guy off. We've got a dome light, and this is what you would use for controlling HDRIs. And so you can see right in here, I've already got an HDRI set up. And if I move it around, you'll be able to see it in the reflection right there. And if I change my camera, I'm gonna kind of come down a little bit here so you can see the backdrop. I've actually got a backplate going that I've piped in here. So you can have a custom backplate with a custom HDRI going too, which is really great for compositing. If I turn that off, you'll see the actual HDRI in there. And you can turn off enable background to get an alpha background in there. And so just a little bit more control than what we've seen in the other lights. Usually it's been just shape and fall off and decay. But in here you get some new options like the environment, and if you want to replace the alpha or throw in a backplate, things like that. So as you're working, you might see some different things, as I said in the beginning. But oh, you're awesome. Oh, thanks, Mr. Walker. That's awesome. Thank you for saying thanks. A lot of people just take it for granted and don't say thanks. So that's awesome. You're very welcome. So that's how a dome light works. Quick and easy. Little shout out to Grayscale Gorilla. That's what I'm using there. This little icon is HDRI link. And here is IES. So IES stands for Illumination Engineers Society, I think, or I think that's right. But pretty much anyone that works in lights and builds lights and engineers lights, they put out IES files, which is the actual data of a light bulb or a lighting setup. So for this one, it's for an umbrella. I've got one here for a pair. And these are usually free from a manufacturer. So if GE has put out a light and you're working with an architectural firm to use certain lights, you can go download that file and make sure all the lights in a house or building are going to be the same ones that the architect is going to be using. So it makes true ArcViz renders, and so the client is going to see exactly what they're getting in their building. So if I turn this off there, you can see a little bit different shape and fall off. These are just all mathematically accurate based off a data file. So we'll get this out of here. Portal, I'm going to change my camera angle, and I don't need the sun. Turn that on. So for the portal, I've got the same dome light as I've got up here, with some differences that I've turned off the diffuse and specular because I've got a hole in the side, so it would be bleeding in from the side. Don't want that. We just want the light coming through the portal. So for a portal light, all you really do is set up the size of the hole wherever you've got it cut out, and you pipe in wherever the light's going to be coming from for the source. So that environmental shader can be an actual Redshift material light shader, or it can be a dome light like we've got here. So that's what I've done here, and you just tell it how intense you want it. So instead of controlling it through here, which you still can, you can do it right here under intensity and control your samples and everything here too. Or if you want, you can control it in your dome, whichever you prefer. If you're working kind of indoor and outdoor like this, you might want to control it in your dome. Here, where we're just working inside, you might just want to control it in the portal. So really easy to just start using portal lights. And down here is physical sun. And I'll be honest, I don't really use the sun that much. It just, I would rather control my stuff. So let me just get back to the other camera. So it's a little bit weird. You can control your red and blue shifts here and the saturation. And if you really want to start controlling it, you can start moving it around here. So the sun's coming up, coming over the horizon. And it's a lot like an infinite light, except you'll notice the color changes as the sun gets overhead. So if this was 12 o'clock, that's really hot, direct sunlight. So it gets really white. As it starts to go down, go over the horizon, you'll see the color shifts there. And then, of course, you can control it a little bit more here, bring up the saturation. So if we bring that down and rotate it around like we were before, there we go. So that's the sunlight. You control ozone and other things like that all through here, horizon height and all that good stuff. And I think that is it. So that's lights. So what was that? Where are we at? It is 9:26, so about 20 minutes of lights. So now it's up to you guys. I'm going to open it up for questions and talk about whatever you want. And one thing Dave asked me to cover was the new update for sampling with the undersampling here. So what that basically is if you're moving around your scene and it's not keeping up with it, you can go in and say, all right, undersample, so kind of like cut it in half. And you'll see the IPR gets a little bit faster, and then we can do it again. So even faster. And one more time again. If we turn on bucket, same deal. You'll notice there's still some grain in there, but then if I turn off the undersampling, it will try and actually render it full quality and get rid of that grain. I guess there's still a little bit left in there. Let me see what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm only at 256. If I went up to like 512, take care of that. So that's good to go. But if you're moving around your scene and it's really just not keeping up, this is how you do it. And it just starts to undersample and make everything pretty much real time. And then throw that back on buckets. And you'll see it's still got some grain in there. And if I turn off the turn up the undersampling, you'll get even grainier like that, and you're good to go. So it's just a good, quick way for people that have really heavy scenes to start dialing it back so they can work in their IPR and move along faster. All right, let me see what's happening with the chat. See if there's any questions that I missed. So, looks like I'm looking at the connecting. Dave, do you see anything that's going on in like Twitch that I might be missing since it's not coming through the chat? Okay. Cool. All right. So let's see. How many people do we have? Does it say? I can't actually see. Is there anyone in the chat that has a question about anything in Redshift that you haven't seen a tutorial yet or that you're really interested in? This is the time to ask. I know I went through the lights really fast, but you can go watch the tutorial too. It's pretty technical and dry, so I kind of want to start doing some fun stuff. I did a fun little hair exploration earlier that was super fast. I was really surprised about that. I can show you guys how to get set up with hair. Let's. All right, so I guess I'll start showing off the hair a bit. And this should be cached and all set to go. Let's see. So you'll see right there, there's the hair. And right now it's just set to progress. I might not have my progressive on. Yeah, I'll turn my progressive on. Speed it up a little bit. So hair is just like using hair in standard. You don't have to do too much to get it going. I'll take, I'll delete this material out of here. I'm going to turn off my IPR for a second. I just restarted it because of the delay. There we go. All right. So let's say we've got this platonic here. You want to add hair. We're going to imagine I went up to mesh, or sorry, not mesh, simulate hair objects, add hair. And you would get a normal hair. And you can do all your settings and get them just how you want. So 12 count with 100 centimeter length, and that's for the guides. And your actual hairs, you can have how many segments you want and get all that situated. So let's pretend you've got that situated. What's going to happen is Redshift is going to try and render the hairs just as they are. It's not going to pick up on the texture here that comes with Cinema 4D, but you can still use that to dial in. What's up, Billy? Dial in the details like frizz and length and density and things like that. Redshift will still pick up on some of those details, but if you really want to start honing it in, you just create a hair material. And as soon as that loads up, drop it here on the hair. and you'll instantly see it come together using the new colors. And it should be, you know what, it's probably gonna try and pull from the details. So it'll automatically try and pull the Cinema 4D hair attributes. I'm gonna take that out of here in the shader graph, and we're just gonna start with plain baseline hair. So you'll see it's now got this orange going to it, and I'll bring this over here, and you can start playing with it and get some really fast, fun results just through these few tools right here. If you start from scratch, so that I'm not gonna start fully from scratch to show hair. Hair's just like you would add it in Cinema 4D. You go into simulate, add hair, and if it will add hair to whatever object's selected. It's pretty much that easy, and then you just set up your settings however you want. So if you want 5,000 hairs and clones and things like that, that's where that's going to come in. Oh. Come on, pop up. There we go. So if you've never worked with hair before, you should go watch a Cinema 4D tutorial on hair. This is more about how Redshift interprets it. And the speed that it does it. So for internal reflection, you can start that there. If you want to add some diffuse, let's say we'll have like a green diffuse. Crank that up. Bring that up too. You'll see how quickly it starts to change that in there. And I think in here I've got 2 clones going plus, so it's 50,000 hairs plus cloning that one time, so it's 100,000 hairs going around. So quite a lot of hair to work with, and you can obviously crank that up even higher. And then transmission is going to change the look a little bit more. It's kind of how it emits light off of it. So there we go. If I bring back the diffuse a little bit, you'll see it better. There's the transmission coming through, and a little bit of the diffuse right there. And then primary reflection. Say we'll give it some green again. A little too heavy on the weight. So there's that. So I want to turn off my IPR for a second and hit play. I've already got that cached. You'll see as soon as I hit play again, it's just going to extract the geometry and update really quickly. And that's it. It's already doing progressive render on there. If I turn on the undersampling, go even faster. So it's already jumping up to 70%, 75%. If I throw on my buckets, this is where the details start to come in. So it's doing a point cache. Now it's doing brute force, and we're up. So that right there is fully rendered that quickly. If I unpause it, or sorry, pause the IPR and then hit play on this again, start it over, and I've got my buckets enabled, so it's gonna actually do it from beginning. So right now it's doing a point cloud, and it's already calculated the point cloud, and now it's going through and doing an actual render pass for brute force. And this is why while I have OBS running and streaming to you guys and everything, and you can see all the details of the hair in here. So if we open up our material again, let me bring up the graph so you can see it better. We've got the internal reflection right in these areas, the diffuse back in here, got diffuse happening, and then the transmission is happening right around these core areas as it moves forward towards the tips, and then primary reflection is going to be these highlight areas where the light is coming in and really reflecting. And if I bring this down, it's got to do another point cache because I'm not doing progressive at the moment. You can see that reflection starting to become more matted. Crank the glossiness back up and start to see what's actually going on right there. And of course, just like everything else, it's got IOR. So if you bring it down, it will change it. You can crank it up, get a completely new effect. There we go. Very quickly, just do a look dev for hair. And the longest part of all of this is knowing how to use hair properly and letting it cache and do like a dynamic cache in the background before going through all this. But that has nothing to do with Redshift. That's just normal stuff you have to go through with any render engine. So for fun, let's go ahead and get that like a pure green. Oh, you know what? If you are doing this, one caveat is translucency will destroy your render times. So if I start to crank this up here, it's only fast because I've got progressive on, but if I switch on my buckets, you'll notice my render times are going to drop a lot. So I've got 3 buckets going slowly. So it's like almost twice the amount of time, and that may not have felt slow, but if you're rendering out a 4K image or a bunch of 4K sequences, it gets really heavy and takes a long time. Let me go ahead and bring up my render from the other day. I think I put it on my Dropbox, and I call it hair test. Is that what I called it? Redshift. Yeah. So I'll bring this up. So this here, because I had just a little bit of translucency going, it took like 2.5 hours to do this, and that's just because I had the slightest bit of translucency, and you don't even really see it at all except for like the tips here. There's a little bit of translucency that happens, so that wasn't really worth it. So if you're working with hair and you absolutely need translucency, fine, do that, but it is not worth it. It definitely like doubles up your time. So rein that in a bit. Don't need so much there. And in just a second, you'll see quickly get a new look. Maybe we'll have like an orange internal reflection going on. Crank that up. Yeah, it is still pretty fast for the level of noise and length of the render. So yeah, 300 frames, you know, that's fast. But comparing it to, say, other things I've done where I'm getting like 5 seconds, 10 seconds a frame to go all the way up to like 20 or 40 seconds a frame, depending on how much hair is moving around and how much motion blur is on it and things like that, that gets lengthy. So, but you know, it's not Arnold and sending it out to Pixelplow and hours upon hours of render time if you're doing it on your own computer. Like more than 2 hours, of course. So pretty cool, quick look dev. Man, we're already at 9:40 or 8:40 depending on where you are, or I guess 6:40 if you're West Coast. Time flies. Here's some more transparency options that will also kill it. So if I crank those up, you'll see it's gonna really slow down again. This one will slow down even more because it's actual transparency. Waiting. There we go. So, you know, not terrible. The buckets are moving around, but it's still slower than what I would want. West Coast represent. Oh man, Matt, is that you? I guess that's you. So, pretty nice and easy way to do some look dev. What else? I mean, the only thing that I don't really want to get into too much is AOV yet, because I want to actually do the tutorial for it before doing a Q&A on it. I know you guys are asking for it a lot, so it'll be there soon. What else? Let's see if there's anything else I've got stored up in recent that I can show you. No. Not really. I guess the only other thing I could show is setting up like a little bit of a neon. I was kind of doing that. Nope, that's this lighting one. Here. Yeah. So if you guys don't know who Raid Zero is, go follow Raid Zero on Twitter. He does awesome work, and he's kind of been helping me fine tune doing neon. He's just an awesome compositor. He uses Octane, but you know, render agnostic is the way to go. He's definitely looking into Redshift too, and we kind of joke about it back and forth. But if you want to look at some like really cool composites and what you can do with any third-party render engine and then taking it into Photoshop and compositing stuff, he's got some cool time lapses. But Raid Zero has been helping me fine-tune this neon look, trying to get this little bit of glass over here and this glowing through properly without kind of completely blowing this out. So the way this is set up is this is just a bunch of splines that have been swept with a circle, and the way the light is happening is I've got a material here, and that material is incandescent, and it kind of fakes an actual light. So it's a lot faster than using an area light that we were showing before and doing a mesh pass. The only thing is you can't control it as well as you can with an actual light. So, you know, catch-22, you got to figure out your priorities, but you get a lot of the same settings. So for this here, even though it's got red color in here, I'm just using temperature, I'm using Kelvin. So to get this really white, kind of almost blue going on, that's cranked up to 7500 instead of 6500. I've got double-sided going on, so it's illuminating all around. Yeah, right-clicking. But you can see that I don't really have a way to control, say, the environment. So if I wanted to throw in an environment like up here, it doesn't affect it at all. So all this neon that's coming off is not affecting the environment at all. The only way I'm actually getting that effect is because I have a really light dome light going on up here, and then under volume, just like the most subtle contribution. And so when I turn that back on, let me turn that off and go turn on my IPR. Speed this up for you guys. There we go. I'll show you some undersampling there, so really speeds it up for you. So this little bit of fog that's happening is just because I have such a slight dome light on. So you have to fake it a little bit, which, you know, like we talked about bias, you can get away with faking things. But if you really want to get into it, you can throw area lights in these areas. No, that's not really a pun. I don't know what that was, but throw an area light on these meshes. That's better. So to show you that, take an area light. That's not my lights. And we're going to go into general. Down here under rectangle, we'll choose mesh, and we'll say the internal R. Throw that in there. So instead of using this material, it's going to be using the light, and I'll take the material off. And here we want to turn on visible and bidirection. And to start adding to the volume, show you what I mean. I'll crank this up quite a bit. I'll turn my volume up even more. this down. So you can see this is now adding to the overall volume scattering, while before it had no effect on it. But if I start adding an area light to each one of these, so I would have to have one for each character, and then if it gets really long, so say if it said the whole Redshift word, that's a lot of area lights just to get the effect that you want. So you can do a lot more just by faking it. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Get rid of that. Go back on to my internal and throw that. So when I render this out, I can do a multipass and bring it into After Effects or Fusion or Nuke and start to adjust the colors in there. I can do the colors in here too if I really want, but you kind of lose that authentic feel a little bit because it just kind of bleeds off really strangely and doesn't hit the glass properly. As we watch this render, you'll see what happens, where an area light is probably more proper, but then you start to lose that speed. So right in these areas, you get this weird effect on the glass, and you start to lose the details in here, kind of in here, where an area light would probably be more effective, but then if you're going to do a lot of work in post, it doesn't really matter, where you can just go back to temperature and just get a nice white light and get these details back in there and fake it. So we're at 9:50. I'm going to stay connected about another 5 or 10 minutes, see if anybody has any questions. So if you're in the chat on YouTube or Periscope, hit me up with a question. If you are on Twitch, we're just not, the chat is not connecting for some reason. It's streaming to you guys, so thanks for watching, but the chat isn't coming through. Let me see if I can hop in there, see if I've missed anything. I don't think so. Brograph. So I've got a lot of viewers, so that's cool. And yeah, no one's really chatting it up in there, so that's okay. Cool. What's up, Paul? I see that you just joined a couple minutes ago. Thanks, AP Ashton Roll. Should I just call you Ashton? Thank you. You have any questions, man? Like if you're in the chat, you have a question or you want to see something in particular, let me know. Actually, speaking of particular, the particle engine in After Effects, let's do something really quick. I want to show you guys something that's really fun. C4DY. Hold on. Cinema. Had too many things open. Load this guy back up. Start fresh. Almost there, promise. I'm probably gonna get an X particles error. It would not be a live stream without at least one crash. That is true. But now I'm getting like the Windows equivalent of a beach ball. There we go. All right. Let me frame this back up for you guys. And so you can have your nice HD 1920 by 1080 ratio. All right, so I'm going to show you a little X particles experiment. So this is fun. I'm going to create an emitter, and we'll set this to say an object, just AP. How long have I been using C4D, and I just came to your show, and so how is Redshift? I've been using Cinema since about 2013. And then Redshift has been awesome. I initially started with standard and physical, and then I got into Octane like right when I guess 3 was announced, so I like the tail end of 2, and then upgraded to 3. And then I got onto some projects that Octane couldn't keep up with, so then I got into Arnold, and Arnold's awesome. And a lot of, what am I looking for? The word I'm looking for. A lot of render farms support Arnold, so that was great for big projects. And the whole thing with Orc and say Ranch Computing hadn't started with trying to experiment with render farms yet. So I stuck with Arnold for a while, and I would go into Octane and experiment and play there when I was just doing something fast and for myself. And then I started hearing talks about Redshift and more Redshift, and then I downloaded a demo, and I saw how much or how similar it was related to Arnold, and I was like, this is it. This is for me. So I ended up buying a license. This was probably back in May or June, I think. And I've just pretty much used it as my render engine of choice, particularly because PixelPlow supports it now too. So that's really awesome. So I don't have to jump into Arnold anymore to do a big project. I can just keep using Redshift and it works. And I could be using Orc, that's true. I've just gotten so accustomed to using Redshift now that I just stick with it. So, I'm going to show you something that's really fun to experiment with xParticles. And let me just go ahead and get like a rectangle, and we'll put this on Z as well. Go into my object, make sure that's in there, and we're going to do it from edges. So start emitting right there, got a nice little twirl to it, and if I get an attractor right there, bring this guy up. So there we go, that's fun. I'm gonna go ahead and let me make sure, 24 frames, good. And so we'll say 10 seconds, even though I don't need it that long. Get this going up a little bit there. And I'm gonna have this just die. Change life, kill, cool, should be good. All right, so something that's really awesome in Redshift is that you can have splines from trails really easily. So what I'm going to do is generate some trails for these particles here. Throw this emitter in here, and we will just do nearest by distance. Let me move this over a little bit so I can read it a little better. And we'll do max number within a distance right there. So we've kind of got this web look going on. And I'm going to throw in dome light with an HDRI really quick. Boom. And let's see what HDRI I want. Guess we will do that guy there. All right, so if I hit play, starting Redshift, and you'll see I just have the standard IPR going right now, not the actual render view. Nothing's really gonna happen except you see the background here. And let me turn off the background. So truly nothing in the scene at the moment. So I've got my XP trail right here. If I go to Redshift object, you'll see curve. And what that's going to do is recognize that these splines right here, these curves, will be able to take hair strands. And as soon as I put that on, boom, you get hair strands applied to all these connections here. You can start to kind of have it do some fun stuff. So, if you want the base to be really small and to scale up, I think I actually have this reversed. Hold on. There we go. I think that's No, I remember. It's supposed to be like this. It's a little bit backwards. So 0 going up to that. You can see almost instantly we've got some nice connections going on here. And if I close, I'm going to close this and go get my render view 1 and pipe that down here. Go ahead and go into that. Go into undersampling just so I can have some real-time, almost real-time feedback, and hit play. So it's struggling a little bit, but you can see it's kind of keeping up. It's trying. There you go. Let me turn my force progressive. So progressive is going to be really pixelated, but you can see it's really trying to keep up really fast. And right there, in just a few seconds, you can start to kind of build this cool webbing from X particles and throw on a material. We'll do car paint because Billy's watching. Right there. And now we've got some cool red metallic flaked car paint on trails just like that. And if you want to crank up your thickness, you can just go ahead and make it cranked up. Let's do 5. Actually, no, we'll do 4 because multiples. And then you can resample these. So if you want to be a little bit smoother. And then you can get even more nitpicky and these details here. So say you want to change your intermediate points to be natural. So these will get a little bit more natural bend to them. And we can say, I'll do like 32 points. So it's really smooth. Come back in here, we're going to do like a 0.5. So it gets thin and wispy and smooth. Frame that a little bit more. So just really fun stuff really quickly just by throwing on a tag. So you're not even generating that here in the scene. There's no geometry being done. That's all calculated right here. So I hit stop, hit play. You'll see it starts to bunch up here again. Hit play again. It's all calculated right here. So you've got like this kind of spider web, almost like a wasp nest building up in here. I'm getting really close. And you'll see it gets kind of jagged, so you can play with all this in here. So if you want to have like an adaptive spline and bring down your angles some, I'm clicking on the wrong arrow. So right now it's saying prepping scene. You'll see a second, it'll update. So you start to get a little bit smoother angles and just play with that a little bit more, and you can start to really smooth it out. And then if you pull back and you want to have even less, it's all real time updated. So because the geometry is only being calculated right here and not in the actual scene, it's not getting very heavy. And so we can bring this back up so there's more connections at bigger distance. Yeah, so as soon as that loads there, it makes all of its connections, you'll see, boom, it does kind of look like a little bit like a chode. So unfortunately, I've got a chode web, especially if I come up top here. Perfect. Now I just need like a secondary group here. Oh man. Let's see, we'll get a spotlight and rotate this up here. I'm gonna need an environment. Kind of get banned from YouTube. I'm not. This is a wasp nest. And do a spot with just a little bit of volume. We'll say 0.025. There we go. Look at that wasp nest. It's the bat signal. Man, I wish David was in the stream right now. He would probably be laughing his butt off. Just getting schmoopy. So, cool little volcanic bat signal. Get schmoopy. Make it red. But really fast. So, I hit play twice. I go back from the beginning and just let that build up right there. And I can almost play it in real time for progressive. It gets pretty heavy. But do some really cool stuff. Oh man, Mark, you're in here. Houdini Mark, that nobody remembered your name on the podcast. That was awesome. So there we go. Let's see, we'll make it Christmas themed. Where's my green? Where's my green light? Why are you still red? Don't flake out on me now, Redshift. Come on. Oh, come on. Really? What happened? There it is. Cool. Yeah, Houdini Mark. Nick, you were there at lunch at, what was it called, Lou Malnati's, and Mark came in a few minutes late, and he kind of sat in the back near me. Maybe, I don't know if you actually got a chance to meet Mark, Nick. So Nick Rockaforce, this is Mark, and he does some awesome Houdini stuff. I don't know if he's allowed to talk about it yet, but he just finished up some work for somebody else that was at the event. They may have been chewing on some gum. I think that gives enough away without giving away too much stuff. What's that? Chop? Oh yeah, what's up, Chop? Hey, thanks, man. I'm glad it's looking cool. I'm glad this is, it started off with some like boring technical light stuff, and now we've got some cool X-particle webbing going on. And, super quick too. I wonder if can I tighten this up, and what happens if it stop? Why won't it let me drag it over? Just go like this. Yeah, so now it gets like really thin and wispy in spots. Maybe if I kind of bring this down. Oh man, now I'm going to try it with glass. See what happens with glass. Oh boy, let's see if I break it. Glass. I don't think I have my samples up high enough. Samples. Boom. 256. 265. And 256. Maybe it's because I'm in progressive. There we go. Getting swifty schmoopy. If I go to paper, that might look kind of like some webbing. There we go. So yeah, you can see I can rotate around, and the IPR keeps up pretty well. Right now I'm doing buckets. If I was in progressive, definitely keeps up. I don't even think do I still have the undersampling on? Nope. So yeah, if I turn on the undersampling, totally keeps up. So yeah, let's see, it's 10:06 my time. If there's any last questions, I'm a few minutes over, but I was getting kind of stoked by this X particles stuff. I think so. Next week for the tutorial, if you guys are following along, I'm gonna go over materials, and I think I'm gonna probably Wacom, chill out. I'm probably gonna just go over like the regular material, the car paint, shader, and probably skin and subsurface. And then I think those are probably going to be the ones that people use the most. And I might do a follow-up video after that going into like architectural ones and incandescent, which I just went over a little bit here. So if you're just joining us and you want to see how to do a little bit of neon light and stuff, rewind the video and you'll see that in there. I went over that a little bit. And then once these first 4 videos, so we'll be up to video 4, are out, I will do an AOV video, because you kind of need to have an understanding of like the basics, how lighting works, how materials work. And once you get all that down, then you got something to build with and play with AOVs. So that's why I've been holding off. I'm kind of doing these in a particular order, so you have the knowledge to start working with stuff. And then once you've got stuff built, you can start using AOVs. All right, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'm at _ the word 5, FIVE 31, numeral 31. Brograph, you can go to at Brograph on Twitter, or Brograph at Brograph.com is the email address, and hit them up with questions. They will forward along to me. I listen to the podcast every week. That's how I got involved with them. And so if they read a question on air, I will try and answer it in the next tutorial. So again, every Tuesday there will be a new tutorial coming out, and every Thursday there will be a live stream. Dave, I will talk to you about next week. I might have to change the timing a little bit, but it probably won't be an issue. It may just have to be like an hour difference. So, guys, thank you again so much. And again, at 530 or at _ 531 on Twitter if you want to ask me questions directly. Again, Brograph at Brograph.com, also at Brograph on Twitter. And I'm glad everyone is hopping in here and asking me questions and giving me great feedback, and I'm glad to learn with you guys. And also, too, let me reiterate, I'm pretty render agnostic, so if you have questions about Octane and switching over into Redshift, throw them at me, and I'll try and do a kind of a conversion video there, too. All right, guys, have a great night. I'm killing the stream now.